Dr. John Demartini, welcome back for round two. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me again.
It's so awesome. And we were just chatting just before I clicked record, and I looked back at our last conversation. It was the 18th of August, 2019. So 2 years. I feel like that was the first year of me having this podcast and really stepping into, I guess, me doing what I love. So I was very youthful at that time, and I guess I've matured. My beard's grown a bit longer in 2 years, and I'm so intrigued to delve back into certain topics that we spoke about, but also new things that have come up because there's been a lot that's changed and grown in the past 2 years. What about for you? What's been your big areas of growth in the past 2 years?
Well, unquestionably, like many, I was blessed to have a kick in the butt when it comes to technology, particularly online presence. And although I don't do all that, I delegate most everything. All I do is teach, research, and write. I have a team now that does that and helps me, go online and do presentations online and educate people around the world. So that has been a shift in my business model. And I'm very grateful for that because I'm able to reach people I would never be able to reach now with all the different social media, Zooms and things that allow us to do that. So that's probably the biggest thing is the technological advancement of the educational industry. And I'm more literate when it comes to iPad creations and technologies there. So I think I went from kindergarten to first grade, at least, when it comes to technology now because of COVID. And St. COVID has helped me, reach more people than I've ever reached.
Yeah, and I think that, with situations like this where we can't control this world event that's happened, we can then adapt to then thrive. And I know even for me, like when we had our first interview two years ago, one of the big things for me that was really important that I was really strong on was I need to sit with the person to interview them. Like it needs to be in person, face to face, cameras, recording, all that sort of stuff to get the energy, to get the vibe. Now, not that, we can't during a Zoom call, but when this all happened, we're talking before Melbourne, we got locked down, can't leave your house for 1 hour to go for a walk. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just quit what I'm doing? It's like, no, I love this. I just need to adapt in this environment to be able to keep serving and keep interviewing, which has actually allowed me, similar to yourself, to learn more about, how to connect with more people around the world. But it also allowed me to connect with people I wouldn't normally see that are in America, Europe, Indonesia, wherever it may be. So it actually opened up a lot more opportunities for me. And I guess I had that limiting belief of if it's not in person, it won't be as good. And it was like, that was only me believing that. It can be as good as I make it, whether it's online or in person. So I definitely know that feeling of adapting during this time.
Well, I did a television show, reached about 5 million people the other day in Spain. And there were 3 people, a translator for me, another person who's in Spain, plus the TV host, plus their team. And we were live, and I was on some sort of a Zoom equivalent and came in, and that was the TV show. We were on the screens in 4 boxes, and we were doing just like we're doing now. And it's mainstream TV, mainstream television. And that was unheard of. That would not, you had to go to the thing, they have to fly you in, and all that cost is eliminated now. Now just go right in.
Which is like they both have their pros and cons. Like I guess it's like when you get to go there, it's the experience of going there, meeting people, live audience, which I'm sure you still love and will be doing in the future. But it's also, if this can, as you said before, if this can help you reach more people in this form, then incredible. This is what we work with, and the channels of which we share our value with.
I was doing a program. One of my signature programs is the Breakthrough Experience. I've done it 1,134 times. About to do it again this weekend, and in fact in Australia. And what's interesting is I was doing a Breakthrough Experience, and there was a gentleman in Madagascar in the back of his house in a field behind his house, overlooking a beautiful river surrounded by eucalyptus trees. And somehow he had satellite access, and he was listening to the program and spending 24 hours with me over the 2 days, live from Madagascar over a river. I mean, you could look down and see the river rushing by. And it was, I'm going, we didn't have that before doing that. So thank you, COVID. But that's again, I've seen Kazakhstan, and I've seen Mongolia, and I've seen places all over the world where people are coming in now.
And I feel like it's just opened accessibility for a lot of people for these events, these teachings. I've seen a lot of speakers and educators around the world that, again, like I wouldn't, with everything that happened, I wasn't able to fly to America and come to an event. Whereas a lot of people transition to, okay, we're going to do it via online. Yes, different experience. But for someone like me or this person in Madagascar that wouldn't normally have that opportunity, now they get to, and it's kind of not becoming the normal, but it's becoming an option as opposed to just the in-person experiences.
Exactly.
Which I think is...
So I'm grateful.
Yeah, me too. And I feel it's one of the things where, especially with it all being like this, I guess it also gives a lot of people that are wanting to do that inner work on themselves, it gives them a lot of lower barrier to entry. Like for a lot of people that were looking at, let's say, maybe the events that I host or you host, and they look and they go, oh, maybe there's a resistance to going to this event because there might be, I don't know what the people are going to do. That's woo-woo, whatever it may be, people think. They actually see it now, they can jump in, and it's not that, I think a lot of people do have social anxiety where going to an event like that could be a big step for them, but having it online and accessible for people is a great option for them. I guess one thing that I'm really intrigued about from your perspective is, as a human behavior specialist and expert, what behaviors have you seen over the past 2 years improve because of COVID? We can obviously look at the ones that haven't improved, but what are the ones that you've seen improve over the past 2 years with a global pandemic?
I rarely use moral language like better, worse, good, bad, right, wrong, or approved or disapproved, more so than became more masterful and more skilled and more refined. But without a doubt, this is, in a sense, initiated people to go inside and look at what they really, 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 really want to do, and increase the probability and opportunity now online for them to be more authentic to what they want. There's a lot of people now doing things that they've dreamed about doing that they figure, I got nothing to lose, I might as well go and try this out. And that's been very important. Everybody has a set of priorities, a set of values that they live in life by. And whenever you're living by the highest priority ones, the most important ones, the things that are most meaningful to you, if you're able to do that and make a living doing that, that's one of the most inspiring and most momentous things you can do in your life. I mean, you're doing what you love and loving what you do and getting handsomely paid to do that. It's like, thank you. And there's a lot of that going on right now. I've seen some amazing creativities with the technologies and social medias and networks that they've got. And people can reach people all over the world to sell their product, service, or ideas. And the people who are playing victims of history instead of masters of destiny are using COVID as an excuse instead of using it as an opportunity. And the ones who've taken it as an opportunity have given themselves permission to do something even more in line with who they are and more authentically creatively do something amazing that contributes. So I've seen people go both ways with it. I've seen people use it as their scapegoat. I've seen them use it as a fuel of opportunity. And I'd rather help people ask questions to help it see it as a fuel of opportunity. It seems pointless to do anything but that. To sit there and play victim of history doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's very productive. But I always say that you have control of your perception, decisions, and actions in life. And you can prioritize your actions and delegate lower priority things. And you can prioritize your perceptions by asking how specifically is whatever happening right now, how's it helping me achieve what I want to achieve in life? And if you answer that question and don't come up with excuses why you can't, and come up with creative answers, you'd be amazed at what you can do with any crisis that you think it's a setback. It turns into an opportunity.
Yeah. And I feel like, as you were saying before, this allowed you to reach more people by refining or working on those skills in terms of technological, being online more? For me, it was, okay, I can't leave my house and do a lot of things, but I can work on more programs for people that are, struggling right now. I can start writing my book. I do meditations every Sunday night. I was not doing that normally because Sunday night I'd be either out with my partner, out with my friends, and, doing normal things. But now for me, it was, how can I serve more, doing things that I love, and just in a way like that. And now it's built a community that wouldn't normally have been there from before. So seeing those opportunities within the pandemic for me was pretty easy, because I normally, I guess, am inclined to be more optimistic. Okay, this is happening. The reality is it's happening, but how can I use this to move forward? And I guess rock bottoms that happen in life, and you were saying those people with the perspective of being, a victim to their circumstances will kind of blame and shame and say, it's because of this, I can't move forward. Whereas the other people will say, okay, because of this, now I can move forward in a certain way. With the people that use things as their scapegoat or use it as an excuse not to move forward, is that conditioning from childhood? Is that like, trauma from childhood, or just their mindset of like, whatever comes up, that's my excuse?
Well, whenever you're living by your highest values, you're more objective. And objectivity means neutral. And therefore, you're not fearing the loss of the thing you infatuate with the most. You're not feeling a resentment and the fear of gain of that which you're resenting most. You're adaptable and resilient to whatever happens because you're able to be flexible. Yeah. But when you're in your amygdala, when you're living in lower values and you feel like you can't do something that's really meaningful, and you go down in lower values, you go into survival mode. And survival makes you polarize subjectively your perceptions and makes things either really good or really bad kind of thing, really polarized. And now you have the fear of loss and the fear of gain, and you get immobilized by fear, and people are trapped that way. And it's a matter of just asking them the right questions. And if you ask the people the right question, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. If you ask amazing questions to liberate yourself from those highly polarized perspectives, all of a sudden you get a glimpse of opportunity that sits there. Your brain can't see it while you're down in amygdala. It only sees it when you balance your brain and go back into objectivity. And then all of a sudden these awarenesses come back, your intuition comes alive, and then you see how you can use this same crisis into an opportunity. I have people that would tell me that, since COVID, I can't do this anymore. And, I can't get this. And I said, well, what you're doing is you're comparing your current reality to a fantasy of how it used to be and a fantasy of how you want it, instead of actually the groundedness of today. And how specifically is today, right now, in the situation you're having, how specific is that helping you in your life? And they'll first say, well, it doesn't. I ask the question and be accountable to answer it. How does it? Well, there isn't any. How does it? And once they come up with it and they start looking, well, it could be doing this way. I could use it this way. I could use it this way. And once they get over the hump, they start seeing how this very situation is filled with opportunity. You can't see it as long as you're comparing your current reality to a fantasy, how you think it should have been or should be. You can only see it when you finally stop and get real about what it is and how specifically is right now helping me get my dream. And when you answer that, there's always an answer. I've yet to see. I always said there's nothing your mortal body can experience that your mortal soul can't love. And your soul is the state of unconditional love when you're grateful for what's going on now, instead of comparing what's going on now to something about how it used to be or how you hope it will be. I always say depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy about what you think it should have been instead of how it is. And when you're not living in the present and finding out how it is and how it serves you, you're missing out on a magnificent power of right now.
And missing the opportunity of right now, because like you said, you're not grounded and centered in where you are now. You're thinking either in the past or in the future. And it's like, well, I don't know about you or anyone else. I've never been in the future or been in the past. I'm here right now, and that's all I can be. So if I focus on that, then again, I can ask those questions to see the opportunities. And I think like I said before, I've been following your work for nearly 10 years now, since I was 17. Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, all of this. I used to be in network marketing. So for me, it was from a young age, I was and even through sport, I played soccer in Europe. I made it semi-pro, and a lot of it for me was personal development. Really helped me with my mindset. A lot of people say to me, it's, when I ask these questions or I ask them, hey, like, what's the opportunity right now? How can you be grateful for what's happening? I do get met with a lot of, oh, you're just positive thinking. Like, that's just, you're so optimistic, like you're not in reality. And it's like, well, I do see the negative effects of what's happening right now. And I think from our conversation 2 years ago, you were saying something along the lines of, I see the gratitudes in what's happened in that day, but also the downsides. And that's what keeps me like regulated and have those low highs and high lows. And when I understand that and I feel that, when I try explaining that, for a lot of people in their minds, they see that as, I don't want a flat line. That's boring. Like, I want those highs and those lows. That means I'm living. And I'm like, but you're throwing your emotions around so much. And then they say, well, you're just positive thinking. You think that nothing bad happens. And it's like, well, no, I see the reality in it. I just don't let it affect me as much as what it used to.
Well, I don't see good or bad in anything. I see an event. John Milton said you can make a heaven out of a hell or a hell out of a heaven. And most philosophers of the ages have known that. So I don't see things, I don't go, well, that's a bad event. I go, that's an event. The question is, no question about it, but there's also some upsides. If I discover them, I can turn it into an opportunity. If I don't, I become victim of history. So what do you want? You want a resilient life, or you want something that you're subject to the external world running your life all the time? And the same thing on something you think is terrific. It has downsides. I always say something that's terrible, you give it a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years later, you look back and go, oh, I'm thankful that happened. And someday you get something you think is terrific, and a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years later, you find out and go, oh boy, I didn't no idea that was going to happen. I had this lady that said, I got the dream house of my life. And I said, okay. In my mind, I already knew she's blind to all the cost of that house. And about a year and a half later, she's going, the friggin' house, I got to maintain it, I got to keep it clean, I got to pay security, I got to pay for this, the taxes of this. And I said, there are no positive or negative events. There's just events in life. And what you make out of them is a choice. And if you can keep them balanced, you're free, you're inspired. But if you go into highly polarized states, then they run you. Because anything you infatuate with or resent runs you, occupies space and time in your mind and runs your life. Yeah. So I flatline it, and it's not boring. I'm a very inspired man, very inspired by what I do. I've been doing it for 49 years. And it ain't because I'm manic or depressed. It's because I'm present. And you can't be present when you're oscillating with these emotional vicissitudes. You only be present when you see both sides and you're poised. Poised, present, purposeful, patient, productive, and prioritized.
Yeah, like you said, being present and grounded allows you to make choices that align with your values. If you don't have that and you're skewing either way, you're, like you said, you're just erratic with choices because you either choose pleasure or pain based on the opportunities that come up.
Well, the amygdala, the animal survival instinct impulse centers of the amygdala are avoiding predator and seeking prey, avoiding pain, seeking pleasure. And you're not going to go anywhere except be like an animal. And Aristotle mentioned that, and many of the Stoics mentioned that, and historically that's been shown throughout the decades and centuries. It's only when you have governance over yourself. If you don't govern yourself with your intuition and physiology feedback to bring you into homeostasis psychologically and physiologically, you're going to end up having to be governed by the public social structure and or the theological structures out there. And being run by the government or run by the religions of the world and traditions and conventions, that's not as powerful, because then you're part of the herd and you're going to end up being, subordinate to outside influence all the time. But if you can govern yourself, you don't have to be governed by others. If you govern yourself, you'll be a leader. If you're governed by others, you'll be a follower. So I try to teach people how to be objective, how to govern themselves, how to see both sides of things, not be distracted by them, not let the impulses and instincts run their life, and give themselves permission to be inspired by a vision and mission that makes a difference, that's fair, sustainable, equity-based exchanges. And when they do, their lives are empowered. And there's no reason to, there's nothing in life that it can't be turned into thank you. I have the largest collection of gratitudes of anybody I've ever met in life. And that's because I document every single day. In fact, you already typed on there, document every single day the gratitudes of what I get to do. And if you do that, if you're grateful for what you got, you get more to be grateful for.
Yeah. There was a moment in my car the other day where just recently, just to give context on everything, and I can share this now because this will come out in a while. So the company and community that I've been building for 3 years had to come to an end. I had just me and my business partner weren't aligning anymore. It was my baby. It was my thing. It came from the podcast. All the listeners come in. We ran events. We ran retreats through it, and it had to come to an end. We couldn't come to an agreement, so it had to be closed. The company, the community, all of that. For me, it was like this massive loss, especially amongst the global pandemic. I was like, I really, this is my thing. And I went through that week of being like, this is not a week, it was probably a couple of hours of like, this is the worst thing ever. It was really painful. It was a bit of my identity that I was losing. But even during that, I was saying to my partner, I go, well, this is just bringing opportunity to be free of this resistance or whatever's happening here, but also to create something new. It doesn't mean I've lost my skill of what I've built or the following or the community. It's just that it'll be something different, and that's okay. That's life. It's change. I'm accepting that there's change. I guess when I was in that breakdown, rock bottom sort of moment, it was like, how can this get any better? I was able to pull myself out of there pretty quickly. And I guess because I have conversations with people on the podcast and just I'm surrounded by a lot of that real thinking that allows me to then make choices, and I'm living in alignment with my values. If this comes up, it's like, okay, that actually does suck in some ways, but it's actually amazing in some ways because now I get to do my thing my way and have more freedom and flexibility with it. But for someone that's going through a rock bottom, maybe they've lost their job or their partner, and they're in those feelings, how can we support them through it? Or if they're listening right now, how can they start to move out of that? Because asking those questions in those moments, I guess, could be pretty hard to even just perspectively see the opportunity in what's happening.
Well, first of all, there is no terrible moment. There's just a moment.
Yeah.
Start with that premise. This is not a terrible moment. It's a moment. Now, the question is, if it's labeled terrible, you are conscious of the downsides and unconscious of the upsides, and you've divided your mind into half, and you're not mindful. Mm-hmm. Start from that perspective. And so then you ask the question, what am I unconscious of? What are the upsides to this thing? Because if I see only downsides, I'm blind. I'm ignorant. Mm-hmm. I'm not being truthful, and I'm making a trauma out of this. And that's nothing to do with what's happening here. It's just my choice of perception. Choice of perception. So you ask, so what are the upsides, and how does this help me get what I want to do? And if you ask that question and don't say, I don't know, I can't find it, and run your little victim story and be accountable, you will uncover an amazing list of upsides there that you never saw initially. And out of that will come a birth of a creative idea that will be mind-blowing, bring tears of gratitude to your life right there on that spot. I've had people that had deaths. They finally, they had an unexpected death of a car crash or whatever it is. And I found out that nobody grieves the loss of the parts of the individual that they disliked or despised. When Soleimani, the Iranian general, was killed by Trump's team or whatever, 5 million people in Iran were mourning. In America, they were celebrating. The terrorist is gone. So the people who perceived him as a terrorist, they were celebrating. They were not mourning. The people that saw him as a hero, a general, great hero, they were mourning. So that's the reality. When we feel we've lost something, it's only because we feel we've lost the parts that we're infatuated with, that we're admiring, we've got on a pedestal, and we're not looking at the other side. And there's always another side to that. And you don't ever feel grief over the loss of things you resented. You actually feel relief. And when you put the relief and the grief together, you'll get a moment of love and appreciation of the transformation that's going on right now. I always say the master lives in a world of transformation, not the illusions of gain and loss. So if you want to run the story and run that story for days, weeks, months, or years, well, that's foolish. But if you stop and become accountable and learn how to do that, that's what I teach people in my breakthrough experience, how to do that. how to ask the question, how to be accountable, and how to transform things on the moment, and how to be able to come out on the other side. And people go, well, what about a death? I have taken 4,000 people through death processes, 4,000 grieving people. I've done it in the Christchurch at the earthquake. I've done it in the tsunami in Phuket. I've done it in the same thing in the Japan tsunami and the earthquake in Japan. We've taken people right there on the spot, live situations, transformed their situation and liberated them, because we're disrespectful. When you die, you don't want people mourning and grieving. You want them to live their life to the fullest. So it's a sort of it's because we're actually holding on to fantasies about this situation. So if we're feeling a loss of something, we had a fantasy about what we just lost. We don't have the reality of it. There's downsides to it too. And we're seeing only the upsides when we feel you lost it. See, there's only two stresses in life and two fears that we have in life: the fear of loss of that which we seek, and the fear of gain of that which we try to avoid. That's it. There's only two. And as long as we're infatuated with something, we're going to fear its loss. If something we resent, we're going to fear its gain. But if all of a sudden something you resent dies, you don't feel grief. You celebrate. You're freed. If a predator leaves and gets shot, you don't get eaten by it. You don't have a grief. You have relief. But if a prey goes away, you feel grief. So it's your choice of perceptions. And if you count and bring yourself into accountability and balance it out, you can liberate yourself from those emotions in minutes. And I mean in minutes. I've done it. I've done it in thousands of cases. 4,000 deaths I've taken through that. And I've got 7,000 facilitators that are doing the same thing around the world. So it's a choice. And if we want to run our story, then we stay stuck. But if we want to go and ask the right questions, hold ourselves to account, answer those questions, and allow ourselves to see the unconscious and bring it up to full consciousness and be mindful, we can transform any situation in our life into an opportunity. That's what I love helping people do, no matter what it is. I've had people lost, family members. I've had them lost businesses. I've had a guy that lost $750 million. $750 million. He came to my Breakthrough Experience program, and his partner that he was in a hedge fund with got some paperwork signed by him and got his signatures and everything else, and cleaned him and everything out and went to another country where there was no extradition. They couldn't touch him. Disappeared with all the money. We're talking about billions. Just disappeared. The guy woke up. He thought he had 750 million. He had nothing. Banks were cleaned out. No credit card use, no nothing. The shock of that was shocking to him. In less than 48 minutes, we had him in a state of tear of gratitude, because he realized that he was in a relationship that wasn't inspiring to him, and his wife left him when he had no money, just got up and left him. And he was in that, he said to me, he says, I've been in that marriage. I don't want to be in the marriage, but I wasn't going to divorce her because it would have cost me 386 million to get rid of her. He goes, she just walked, didn't take a thing. And then he says, I got a woman now in my life that's actually a blessing. She's now, and we started looking at the upsides to this. 48 minutes later, he was in tears of gratitude. He goes, this one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life is this. I've got my health back. I got my life back. I got the person in my life that I want to love. There's never a crisis without a blessing. There's never a downside with upside. There are no one-sided events in the world. We are choosing to see it that way, one-sidedness out of our ignorance. Ignorance means we're ignoring the other half.
So it almost takes me back to that conversation 2 years ago of there's always hidden order in everything that's happening.
Yeah. There's a hidden order in it. When you can, I would say that extracting meaning out of existence, as Viktor Frankl did, is bringing the unconscious conscious at the same time so you can be fully conscious. If you're seeing something you resent, finding the upsides is basically extracting the mean. The mean is the middle between the positives and negatives. That's the mean. Extracting meaning out of something is finding the upsides on the things that are down, that you think are down, and finding the downsides on what you think are up. And that's how you extract meaning out of your existential world. And if you ask those questions, hold yourself accountable, and I guarantee I've been doing it for years. 30-something years I've been helping people do that. I'm absolutely certain that that's doable. And people want to run their story and want to play like that's a real thing. That's why the moral hypocrisies, if that's a bad thing and that's a good thing, block people. It traps them. It's an event. If you want to choose to make it good or evil, that's your own illusion. But if you want to see the event and use the event to your greatest advantage, be resilient, be adaptable, ask the questions, liberate yourself from the bondage of that, and get on with your life. Everything is on the way to a wise person.
And I guess even when it comes to what's recently happened and affected nearly everyone is that the global pandemic, you can when we sit in that victim sort of mindset, and, you know, even especially where I am right now, they're looking to the person, you know, in government, and they're saying it's his fault, it's this, it's that, this is the worst thing ever. It kind of, it only just brings it, like you said, if you're like looking at the polarization of things, you're only fueling more of that within your body. And I feel like if we look at it on an energetic point of view, that's only creating more dis-ease within the body. Of course, you're going to be then.
You're creating illness.
Yeah.
You're creating illness. Illness is exactly that. It's a feedback mechanism to let you know you've got an imbalanced perspective on reality. Yeah. Bottom line, from a psychological perspective. Because if you're highly polarized and infatuated, you're going to fear its loss. If you're highly resentful, you're going to fear its gain. You just added fear to your life because you labeled something really good or bad and didn't see both sides to it. You know, when you meet somebody, you meet a really hot chick, right? At first you go, oh my God, this is amazing. No, you're blind. You're blind to the downsides. Give it a week, a month, 3 months, and you're going to start uncovering some of the things. You go, oh my God, this is a fatal attraction. I had no idea this lady's psycho, you know? But the same thing in the girls, they meet guys, they think, oh my God, I got my Prince Charming. Then you find out that they're mercenaries or something, you know, they got another side. So don't ever believe that there's a one-sided person. There's no hero without a villain. There's no villain without a hero. There's no saint without a sinner, and a sinner without a saint. There's just human beings. And the second we get past the idea of labeling them and putting them in a box and finally look for both sides of people, we can love a lot of people. There's a lot of people to love out there.
And I really love this in ourselves. Like when we look in the mirror, for a lot of people, and especially in the programs that I do, we look in the mirror and we go, it's only bad. Like, I don't like myself. I hate this. I'm not good enough. Where it's like, hang on, let's uncover all the beauty that is there as well, because you're all of the things. And that's when we can.
Well, people try to get rid of half their life to love themselves. I don't understand that. Why would you want to get rid of half of yourself to try to love yourself? You want to be loved for all of you. You know, I went through the Oxford Dictionary many, many years ago, and I went through and looked up every possible human behavioral trait a human being can have. I found 4,628 traits in that dictionary. And then I found out that I had every one of them. I was nice, I was mean, I was kind, I was cruel, I was open, closed, honest, dishonest, stingy, generous. I had every trait that I found in that book at different moments in my life, at different times with different people. And I thought, and then the traits that I thought were terrible, I looked, what were the benefits to me at the time? I wouldn't have done it if I didn't see there was a benefit to it. And what were the drawbacks, the traits I admire? And I balanced them out. And I realized, you know, I have never got rid of any of those traits. Those traits surface again whenever I need them.
Yeah.
You don't need to get rid of any part of yourself to love yourself. All the traits are needed in different settings. As used to say in the biblical writings, you know, there's a place for everything under the sun. I really believe that inside you need all the parts. You don't need to, you know, fix yourself or get rid of half yourself or try to get only one-sided. And people go, well, I'm not perfect. The perfection is both sides. Trying to get one-sided is never going to happen, and that's not perfect. The perfect is the two sides of your life.
Yeah,
you support my values, I can be nice as a pussycat. You challenge my values, I can be mean as a tiger. I'm both of those, and I don't need to get rid of those. I'm loving those two sides. I need those two sides in my life to get things done. And so people don't realize that they get caught in moral hypocrisies and ideal, you know, facades of something that nobody's living by, but everybody thinks they're supposed to live by, and trap themselves instead of love themselves.
And so does this mean that, let's say someone has certain behaviors and habits that aren't serving them, aren't moving them towards where they want to go? We don't, not to label them as good or as bad, but let's just say there's things that repeat. Maybe it's their mindset. From what you're saying is like, well, if you're living in alignment with your values, you wouldn't have that sort of problem because you wouldn't label things. But for people that are repeating those patterns, is it then going back and you know, going back to all those things that we think of either about ourselves or about situations that have happened, and finding that peace with them? Not that it's good or bad, it's just peace. It's both of those things. Then we won't make those repeating habits and behaviors.
No. You see, if you're not filling your day with high priority actions that inspire, your day is designed to fill up with low priority distractions that don't. And when you're doing that, you're going to be unfulfilled. You're going to get your blood glucose and oxygen into your amygdala. The amygdala is going to make you want to avoid pain, seek pleasure, avoid predator, seek prey. You're now going to be more impulsive and more compulsive and more addicted to fantasies and ideals and infatuations, consumerism, possibly drugs. But those are symptoms to let you know you're not living by priority. They're not mistakes. They're not weaknesses. They're biological responses to people who are not prioritizing their life and not living by authentic pursuits. And this means that they're trying to subordinate to other people, trying to live in other people's lives. They're unfulfilled. They're creating these symptoms to let them know they're not being authentic. All of the symptoms that you go through are trying to get you to be authentic. If you grasp that, none of those are mistakes. They're just misinterpreted of what they're doing for you. And many times we've labeled them as errors, we label them as weaknesses, but they're actually not. If they're interpreted wisely, they're feedbacks to let you know you're not living by priority in your life. And that is the gift that they're offering. Once you understand that, you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah. And even in that, it's like
I had a guy in France. He was maybe 67 years old or something like that, about my age. And he was drinking. And I said, how long have you been drinking extensive like this? He says, the last 3 years. What happened 3 years ago that made you all of a sudden go into excessive drinking? I don't know. No, you do. What did you do that's changed in 3 years that make it catalyze it? Don't know. Then all of a sudden, his other person who hired me to do consulting for him said, oh, yeah, you do, Roger. What is it? What happened 3 years ago? Okay. I didn't sell my company, but I delegated it and I no longer have to do anything and I'm making money without meaning. I said, well, people that do money without meaning end up in debauchery. And people that have money with meaning, they end up in philanthropy. And that's a basic principle. And so all of a sudden I'm talking about substantial amounts of money. We're talking about nearly billions. And he's making that without having to do anything. And he's doing that. And he's got no meaning now. I said, well, you had meaning at that time. Are you drinking like a madman? He says, no. I said, well, let's go back in the game. Let's go back and do some deals again. Let's go back into business. And I'm telling you, that guy went back into business. And that was the last time he started the excessive drinking. It was amazing because the second you're back doing something that's meaningful, something that inspires you, something that's productive, that's something that makes a difference in people's lives, that you feel you're actually contributing, you don't have time for that. You're too busy doing something that's meaningful. And that's so important that all those symptoms are guiding you back to something that's meaningful.
And I guess
trying to help you.
The byproduct of that is fulfillment. And that's where we feel the happiness, the joy, peacefulness.
His drinking went plummeted down when he got started doing deals, because he knew when he did a deal, in order to close the deal, he can't be drunk when he's doing a deal. He had something purposeful to get up. And he started to lose weight and he started to work out and he was making sure he was doing his deals again. And he went back in the game. And he says, and he was turning over to the next group the closing of the deals, but he was doing the deals. He said, that's the part I love. Well, then prioritize it. You're doing only the most important thing. He says, I love deals. I just don't like to do all that other stuff. That's what made me want to quit work and delegate it. Yeah, but you love that part. Get into that part.
Yeah. And
it changed his whole drinking process. I mean, he was no longer a out of control drunk. He was an inspired individual doing deals again.
Yeah. And it really goes back to what you were saying before of like, just find those things that you love doing and do more of those things. In terms of finding income for those, there is those opportunities out there. So for me, I know one of the biggest things that I've loved and always loved, and this is why I've loved working in many different jobs and especially in network marketing when I was in it, was just connecting with people, even just catching up for coffee with someone. That fulfills me so much because I love meeting people and just becoming friends with them. Like it's a passion of mine. Hence why I started the podcast, because I was like, I just want to talk with incredible people, learn as well, because growth is one of my other big ones, or learning, and then sharing that with others. So when, there was an opportunity where someone was like, they reached out and said, do you want to come on a radio show? I was like, amazing. Like that would be incredible. I just get to talk and do something I love and get rewarded for it. That would be amazing. Did that align with my values at the time of what I was building? No, but there's so many avenues for me to do what I love. And as you said before, I do what I love and I love what I do. I probably got that from you, that quote. But for me, I am. And that's why I feel so much fulfillment, even while we've been restricted to our own houses in the past, 2 years. No, year, 1 year.
Yeah, I tell people to ask themselves 7 questions. What is it I would absolutely love to do in life? How do I get handsomely paid to do it? What are the highest priority actions I can do today to help me move in the direction of manifesting that and creating that? What obstacles might I run into? How do I solve them in advance with foresight? What worked, what didn't work today? How do I do it more effectively and efficiently tomorrow? And how did, no matter what happened today, how did it get me closer to that objective? You ask those 7 questions, you're on your way to doing something that inspire you and make you money doing what you love.
Yeah.
And I've taken thousands of people through that. I had a lady one time that came to my Breakthrough Experience program that loved playing with her dog. We turned it into a $25 million net worth, 25 million from playing with her dog. We turned it into an amazing thing. Her dog became one of the most famous dogs in America because of it. But she asked a new set of questions. He became the Milk-Bone Dog Biscuit mascot. Started having her own TV show with her dog. I mean, she made that dog win on the Globe Awards, the Academy Awards. That dog was the most famous dog with Gidget, the Taco Bell dog. Those 2 dogs were the number ones in America. But it started in a seminar live asking her those 7 questions. I love spending time with my dog. Good. How can you get handsomely paid to do it? And we came up with an ingenious way of doing it. And she made a fortune, literally made a fortune off a dog.
So would you preface that with, even if you didn't make money from doing what you love, would you just say, just do it because you love doing it? That's still fulfillment.
That, yeah, you can. But the point is that if you're doing something that you love doing and you're getting paid to it, your vocation are the same.
Yeah. So
if you're having to do something else to make a living,
yeah,
then you're having to escape to do what you love. I don't want a schizophrenic life. I want to do what I love. I want to travel the world. I live on the ship, so I travel the world. I want to teach and research and write. I do that. I sat down and designed my life. I made it happen. And I'm absolutely certain people can do it because I've taken thousands of people through the process of showing them how to do it, and they've done it, and they're doing amazing things. It'd be impossible to convince them you can't live an inspired life. But you're not going to do an inspired life doing low priority things, escaping your life. Because if you're not doing something that you love doing and getting paid for it, your vacation is split. Yeah. And that's where Monday morning blues, Wednesday hump days, thank God it's Fridays, and week friggin' ends come from. That's where a lot of people live. And they don't have to live that way. It's choice. People think, well, I can't, I got to pay the bill. No, you don't. No, you can sit down starting right now and you can start to design a product, service, or idea that means something that you want to go out and bring to the world. And you can structure it in some economic way where you can make a fortune out of it. We live in an amazing world where we can go and do absolutely fortunate things with creativity. We just don't use it.
And it's not to say that thing might not take a certain amount of time to get to that point where it is making that same income.
So what?
But
what if it takes a year or 2 or 3 to build the thing up? Right before I got on this show, I got on one of the brightest men in America, probably a Nobel Prize winner in the making, who developed gene therapy. He's the founder of gene therapy. Okay, this guy has done amazing stuff. And he had that dream, and he's waited 46 and a half years to get where he is today, 46 and a half years. Doesn't have to happen overnight. It's the journey, not the destination. I've been teaching 49 years. It doesn't have to happen overnight. But I started teaching at age 18 and I had a few people. I had a large 375-pound Afro-American woman teach. The first student I ever had was a woman that wanted me to teach her yoga. 375-pound woman wanted me to teach her yoga. Okay, I taught yoga, but I didn't stop. I just kept going. Now it's billions of people we've reached. And it's very simple. If you stay with something that's really important to you, you won't stop. You'll master it. You'll refine it. You'll get skills. You'll get insights. You'll study. You'll learn. You'll get creative. You'll go get mentorship. You'll do whatever it takes to do something that's meaningful. Why would you want to spend your life doing anything but what's meaningful and inspiring and that you love?
And it's one thing that I say to a lot of my clients and in my programs and on the podcast is like, life is way too short to not love who you are and love the life you're living and spend it with meaning. So for me, it's always been that thing of like, at least give it a go. Like, it may not be the one idea that you think of, but it's allowed to transform. I think we have these set ways of, if I think of this one idea and if this doesn't make me money, then I'm a failure. And it's like, whoa, relax. Like everyone has a lot of things along the way.
But if it's something really, 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 really important to you, you won't stop. Failure, I guarantee you, failure, just like the addiction to success, is a symptom of not going after what you really, really feel is important. Because when you have something that's really important, if you fall over, you get back up again.
Mm-hmm.
You get back up again. You fall over again, you get back up again. If you give up and you call it a failure, it's because it wasn't really important to you. And that's a great thing that happened. It let you know that's not it. It's like Edison, you know, had 1,000 ways or 10,000 ways or whatever. That doesn't make a light bulb to get me my light bulb. That's how he had it.
Yeah.
There's something that's really meaningful to you. You will turn it into an opportunity. I promise you. If it's really important to you, you won't stop.
You'll make it your life journey to do it. I had this one lady come through my program who's in her 50s. She's a hairdresser, a hairstylist. She has a salon in the city, and she's had it for 10 years, and she wanted to win the #1 hairdresser in Australia. It took her 10 years to get it. She got second, third, fifth, but on the 10th year, she got first. And it was one of her biggest achievements. And everyone else in our program group were in their 20s. And I'm like, when have you given 10 years to do something or to, reach a peak in something? We haven't. Even for myself, did I give my soccer career 10 years? No. But I found that wasn't fulfilling me and giving meaning to my life in the ways that I wanted it to. So I switched. And yeah, I bounced around from a few different things, but look what I'm doing now. Am I at the peak? Well, I'm at one peak, but that doesn't mean there's not another one that I can keep pursuing because I love what I do. So I want to keep doing it.
When you're doing something you really love to do, the second you have accomplished one of the things, you don't tell I'm successful. You get on to the next step.
Yeah.
You keep going. You're grateful, move on. Yeah. People say, well, Dr. Demartini, how did you become successful? I said, I don't think of myself as successful. I think of myself as a man on a mission. Yeah. My mission has no end. And the day when I pass, I'll probably be doing what my mission is. Yeah. People don't understand. They go, well, what are you going to do to chill out? Chill out from what? When you're doing something you love to do, you don't need to chill out. Your life's a chill.
Yeah. I get that a lot when I do quite a few things and I go, but I love all of them and they make me feel really good. Why would I stop? Why would I take certain holidays or take a month off? Why, when you love what you do? That's when, like you said, you're trying to escape your vocation, which isn't the thing that you really love and gives meaning to your life.
Exactly.
What you were saying before about, we were talking about finding your values, getting clear on your values, living in alignment with those values, but also being super, radically accountable for your life, because it's only you that can change it. It can't be me or you that comes in and will tell someone what to do. They have to be the ones to go within to find that inspiration to ask those questions. You said something 2 years ago that stayed with me, and it was know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. And I look at how the order is there, because if we don't know who we are, we can't really love it, because we're loving, but we're maybe unhappy with what's happening in life, our results, how we're feeling about ourselves, our relationships. Is it knowing ourselves is literally going back and going, well, what's our values? Because if you don't know those things, you're kind of just wandering around going, well, if something feels good, I'll just, it'll stumble across me.
But your ontological identity is an expression of what you value most. So if you're a mother and you have 3 children and they're under 8 years of age and you're 35 years old and your highest value is those children, if you walk in a mall, you're going to spot children's clothes, children's education, children's entertainment, children's health items. Your life is going to demonstrate what you value. And if you ask that woman, who are you? She'll say, I'm a mother. She won't have to question that. You meet an entrepreneur and their values are entrepreneurship, and you ask him, and he may have 3 kids, he may be a father. If you ask him, who are you? He's going to say entrepreneur. Whatever your highest value, your ontological identity revolves around. Whatever's highest on your value, your teleological purpose revolves around. Whatever's highest on your value, your epistemological pursuit revolve around. So therefore, your highest value is an expression of who you are. Tell me what that is, and I'll tell you who you are. And knowing who you are and then structuring your life to live by that highest value is basically being who you are. And I guarantee you'll love your life. Yeah. You'll love yourself.
And then the
I was
result
I,
is,
I was I was at a program with Louise Hay many years ago. Some people may remember Louise Hay. She passed away a few years ago. Louise Hay was doing a program. This was maybe 30 something years ago. And she stands up on there. She puts a mirror on the stage and she says, everybody come up out of the audience and come up on the stage and stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you. You know, you're magnificent. I love you just the way you are and everything else. I was amazed at how many people had difficulty doing that. When I got up on that thing, she had to get me out of there. I was like, yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. I was amazed at how many people couldn't say I love myself in front of the mirror because there's a misinformation they're going by. They're sort of like an imposter reality because they're trying to live somebody else's life. They're looking up to somebody and they're admiring them. They're injecting the values and they're trying to envy and imitate them. Emerson said, watch out for that. It's suicide. And they're trying to be somebody they're not. And how are you going to love yourself? How are you going to love yourself if you're a cat trying to swim like a fish? How are you going to love yourself if you're a fish trying to climb a tree like a cat? You're only going to love yourself when you actually realize who you are and stick to it and become masterful at it. Be the greatest at who you are, not second at being something else.
Yeah, we're looking at someone else comparing, saying, if I was like that, then I'd be happier or perfect or whatever it may be. Or we're looking at our past and going, these were problems and mistakes and failures, and this is what's wrong with me, instead of bringing in that peace and understanding of they're all gifts. That's exactly who I am. And that was exactly what was supposed to happen to make me who I am today.
I had a lady who was a meeting planner in Houston, Texas one time. And she said, Dr. Demartini, I'm going to have you speak to this real estate group about, 800 people. And I said, thank you. And she said, but you can't tell them about your teenage years. I said, why? Well, what would they think about you? I said, what do you mean, what would they think about me? Well, you were a wild teenager. I said, so I'm who I am because of that.
Yeah.
So she said, well, just don't bring that up in the seminar because, you want them to think that you're this. And I said, I when she walked away, I thought, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them my story, my teenage story, and how I got where I am today. And I did the whole story, and I got a standing ovation at the end. And she said, well, you pulled that off, but you don't want to do that again. And what it was is she was regretting her life and didn't want anybody to know about it. And she was judging it. So she was projecting it on other people and me. And she says, I don't want people to know about her. That was her own stuff projected onto me. I look back at my life, and anything I can't say thank you for is baggage. Anything I can say thank you for is fuel. And there's nothing on there that I wouldn't want anybody to know about. There's nothing to hide because it's just who I am. And that's what makes you who you are. And you want to be able to look in the mirror and go, I love you. Thank you. And that will happen if you're living by priority. And that will happen if you ask, whatever's happened in your life, how's it helping you get where you are in life?
Yeah.
And you'd be grateful for your life that way.
And I guess
we've all done crazy stuff. If I gave you $100 million for who could put the craziest crap on the table, I bet everybody would put their stuff down the table. And if they knew they got 100 million out of it, they'd say, well, I did this, or I did this, or I did this. So what? Welcome to how you got where you are.
Yeah. And we start to celebrate everything that's happened in our life. And again,
Yeah.
we don't see it as baggage.
Exactly.
And I think
I've had crazy stuff and it's all been helpful to me.
Yeah. And I think that if I was going to ask a question about, what about the people that have a lot of anger, that have a lot of resentment? I guess it's similar. Like they're just not seeing the hidden order in things, and they're going, it should be different. That's why there's anger.
Well, anytime you expect somebody to live in your values, anytime you expect them to be one-sided, not both-sided, anytime you expect yourself to be one-sided, not both-sided, anytime you expect yourself to live in somebody else's values, you're going to end up with depression because that's not how life works. And when you finally smack your head against the wall enough times, hopefully you learn how life works. Every human being wants to be loved and appreciated for who they are. And their values are what determine that. And if you can't honor what their values are and you keep wanting to fix them into your values, self-righteously projecting onto them that they're supposed to live in your values, you're going to end up with a lot of anger. And if you expect yourself to live in somebody else's values, you're going to have a lot of anger. But that's not because of anything except your own misperceptions about the reality. Mm-hmm. And so I try to teach people in my programs, the Breakthrough Experience and others, how to ground yourself in how life is really at, not the fantasies. Dirac, the Nobel Prize winner, said it's not that we don't know so much, we know so much that ain't so. It's about not learning. It's about undoing some of the learning that's been misleading us. There's so many myths out there and so many fantasies out there that people are thinking they're supposed to live by. Shed them, get on with what the magnificence of the way life is far greater than the fantasies we impose on it.
Yeah. So for someone that's starting out, that really wants to, that they're noticing that, hey, I'm not grateful for these things. I'm not present. I'm either in the past, in the future, fear, anxiety, anger, whatever it may be. Where does someone start? Is it going to your values? Because if you can start living in alignment with those, you'll start feeling that change of, I'm living in alignment with my highest values. Or do you suggest somewhere else?
The moment you live by your highest values, you don't accumulate as much baggage. And the moment you don't, you're just adding to your baggage, weighing yourself down because you're in your amygdala. You know, I developed a method, the Demartini method is designed to basically ask a set of questions to make you fully conscious of stuff you've been unconscious of. And once you do, you balance out these equations and you shed these illusions that you carry around, the fantasies you have about yourself that you think you're all proud of, which isn't you, by the way. When you're proud, you're living by a facade. When you're ashamed, you're living by a facade. When you're living by yourself, you're really just centered and present. And so going in there and asking the right questions to balance out the equation and get back into equanimity and authenticity is liberating. But that occurs if we live by our highest values spontaneously. But if for some reason you're not, it's learning how to ask questions that equilibrate the mind. So if you're seeing a negative, what's the upside? If you're seeing a positive, what's the downside? Center yourself. How are you going to have a balanced physiology and have wellness if you don't have a balanced psychology? You can't. A balanced psychology is absolutely essential for a balanced physiology. And your symptoms in your body, epigenetically and autonomically, are going to create symptoms to guide you back to that authentic self. Because we have a physiological homeostat inside our psychology and brain and physiology and hormone system. It's all trying to get homeostasis so we're not perturbed by the external world. But people that live by their highest values live internally, intrinsically. People that live by lower values and try to live by somebody else's expectations, they're going to live extrinsically. And those people are perturbed constantly. And they're living in a fantasy and they're trying to avoid a nightmare. The Buddha says the desire for that which is unobtainable, the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering. We try to instead of seeing the magnificence, we hold on to a fantasy how life's supposed to be.
And that's that fantasy of, it could be of either everything is bad and everything is happening not for me, to me, or it's the other fantasy of everything positive thinking, but not being accountable for your life and for your values. Like we can be unhappy and be in, let's say, a job we don't like, and we know we're unhappy, but then we try and trick it by saying everything's all good, positive thinking, self-love, self-care, take the bubble bath. But it's like, hey, intrinsically, are you feeling fulfilled and have meaning? And if not, fucking change that.
Well, Aristotle said the golden mean was the center and the balance between two extremes. That's what he showed, the excess and deficiency. So if we exaggerate ourselves with pride or minimize ourselves with shame, that's an excess deficiency. The mean is our own true self-worth, not our little elevated and depressed self-esteems, the facades we live by. I'm a firm believer in asking quality questions. I've asked quality questions. I've trained people how to do that, and it liberates people once you're accountable to answer those questions.
Yeah. Oh, man, it's always a great conversation when we get together. Where can people find you, connect with you, and be part of all the things that you teach and share?
They simply can go to drdemartini.com. Just go to drdemartini.com and go to the value determination process. Just take the time to go to the Demartini value determination process online. drdemartini.com, value determination process, and take 30 minutes of their time to go through and answer 13 questions privately, free. I mean, no one will see it, just you. It'll store it there. You can look at it, do it again a week later, a month later, and be honest about the answers. It will be mind-blowing to actually look at what your life really demonstrates important. You know, you ask people, how many of you want to be financially independent? Everybody puts their hand up, right? They can put their legs up. How many of you are? All the hands go down. Many people think they want something, but their life doesn't demonstrate it. I'm not interested in what you fantasize, what you say. I'm interested in what your life demonstrates. Go online, do that exercise. There's a massive amount of educational materials on my website. They can keep busy for the rest of their life. just studying stuff and watching videos and newspapers and magazines and stuff. I've been writing and doing that for years. Take advantage of that information. It's just a plethora of educational insights.
I love that. So one question about that, can your values change?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're 10 to 10, you might want to play. 10 to 20, you may want to socialize. 20 to 30, you may want to find a mate and a career path. 30 to 40, you may want to have a marriage, and you may want to start your own family and have your own business. 40 to 50, you may have another thing. Yeah, there'll be changes along the way. The summation of all the values and their changes are your life's journey. My values haven't changed drastically. Mine still teach for 49 years, but the content of what I teach is evolving.
Yeah. So doing this on a regular basis, like every quarter, every year, it's something I do. Every quarter,
go on and do the value determination, see where you are today. Because if you set a goal that's not aligned and congruent with what your values are, your body's going to create symptoms, your life's going to create symptoms.
Yeah.
All areas of your life is going to give you feedback to let you know how to be authentic. If you're authentic, those symptoms go away. If you're not authentic, symptoms are going to be there for you. The symptoms aren't bad. They're your gifts. They're guiding you to authenticity.
Yeah. And I feel like, like I said, with, my company ending and one thing ending, new chapter beginning, the vision and the mission doesn't change. The vehicle in which it's happening will shift and evolve and grow, but it doesn't mean my mission has changed or the vision of what I'm creating. So it's like knowing that and then seeing, okay, every quarter, what am I doing? Like you said, I think it was every day you were saying, what have I done today that's put me in alignment towards that or in those values, to live in those values, and what hasn't? What can I do tomorrow that's going to better help me live in those values?
A big question I got from Bill Gates. One of them says, what is the highest priority action I can do today, take today, that will help me fulfill my mission of serving the most ever-growing number of people in the most efficient, effective way with the resources I have today? Great question. Great question. If you stick to priority and you learn how to see, no matter what happens on that way, there's nothing stopping you in life.
And this is what you said before, like the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Most people do not ask themselves that question every night. Therefore, probably the most people live in that huge polarity every day because they're not having that accountability with their own life.
That's exactly it. They're subordinating to other people instead of actually, I said on The Secret movie way back years ago, 14 years ago, when the voice and the vision on the inside is greater and louder than all opinions when the voice and the vision on the inside is greater than all opinions on the outside, you master your life. But if people are running their life by other people's expectation, you're going to be average. You're not going to be extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for, your time, your wisdom, what you do in the world. Like I remember, I don't know if you got to see it. I actually met you at one of your events and we had a photo together. I think it was 5 years ago. And on the last time we had this interview, I kind of threw it up on YouTube to like show that. And it was, your work has been so impactful for me. And, even knowing my values, it's something I love. I love teaching. I love sharing with my clients as well. And even just for me, being able to do that. And like you said before, I do what I love and I love what I do. You've had that impact on me along my journey. So to be able to share a conversation with you and to further educate myself, but also share that with so many people is such an honor. So, thank you so much for being you, for doing what you do, and for living in alignment with your values, because that's what's sharing so much value for the rest of the world. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. I appreciate this. As Albert Einstein said, the greatest teacher is exemplification. Thank you for recognizing it. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thanks everyone for listening in or joining on wherever you're joining on. And until next time, everyone, take care. Peace.